Hi everybody, it's Janet from SugarShine Designs and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to try to demystify the concept of layered stamping. And for my images I'm going to use the September My Monthly Hero kit from Hero Arts. This has a lot of images of plants and pots, and there's a lot of layering you have to do to really work with this kit. I don't claim to be an expert at using layered stamping, but I am getting better at it, and I thought I would share with you some of my tips and tricks to help keep it straight. Because I am not a very spatial person, and I have a hard time with layered stamping. One thing I can suggest to you is find an image that you'd like to copy, because practice makes perfect, and this is one that I found for this kit. Janette Kausen posted this as part of the design team for this particular kit, and I liked this image, and so I decided to try to recreate it myself, and I thought I'd share it with you. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take all the stamps that are going to create your scene and kind of lay them out on the panel that you're going to stamp. And so here I'm taking all the stamps, and there are several. There's actually, let me count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different stamps used to create this scene, and so it's hard to know what to do first. The first thing to do is always to get the stamps and lay them on your panel. Make sure they're going to be placed correctly so that you don't do part of the stamping and realize you're out of room for the rest of the image or whatever. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm going to start by stamping the first image, and it's not what you might think. It's actually that seed pod, and the reason that the seed pod has to go first is because that it is the one image that is completely shown without any blocking of any kind by any of the other stamps. So it's the thing you have to start first with. It's the very first layer. And then you kind of have to look around after that to see, well, now what comes next? What is less hidden by any other items in this image? Some people will say you've got to start from the front and work backward, and that's true. But for me, I have to think about it in a more simple form, which is, well, what stamped image here is not covered up as much as the others? And that's one way to at least start looking at it. Now, in this case, the pot is going to come next, or the jar, because even though you might initially think it's the plate that it's sitting on, look at the back of that plate. It is completely covered up by that jar. So therefore the jar has to go first. Now what you will do is you will need a mask, and you can make your own mask by just stamping that same image on another piece of paper. I make my own. I just use Zig two-way glue on the backs of the images that I cut out so that it's removable. And then I will put that on top of my stamped image. Now you're going to see that the masks I use tend to come off or release, and that's really because I'm using watercolor paper here, and the paper is very bumpy, and so the adhesion isn't all that tight. But it still works, and I didn't have any mistakes because of that happening. So now you can see me here placing the jar that I want to use. Now one thing I would suggest to you, and one that I've seen many other stampers say in their blog posts and things, is that when you're doing layered stamping, it's always a really good idea to do a sample stamping first. And you can see from my masks that I have already done a sample. You can see that, like my plate, for example, there, you can see where I had already stamp that onto a practice piece because my mask has that stamp of the plate already on it. And you know, that doesn't mean that you're not confident or that you're not capable. It's just practicing to make sure that what you think is going first and second and so on is really what should go on first or second. Sometimes it surprises you. And again, if you're like me and not very spatial, you can often get surprised because I just can't see it in my brain, so I have to practice a little bit with it. But I do know that the more you do this, the easier it gets, because I've definitely seen that happen with my own stamping progress. So if you like this kind of technique, just keep practicing. It will get better, it will get easier. So you can see now that I have put on 2 masks for both the jar and the seed pod. Then I stamped the plate. And now while my mask is still in place for the jar, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the image of the plant. And again, if you look at my mask, you can see the stem there that was in my practice image. And so later on too, if you like your stamped image, your practice stamped image, you can use that as a little bit of a guide of where you stamped before. So there's a positive there as well. Or if you didn't like something, you can kind of know, well, I need to move it a little bit to the right or left to where I practiced it. All right, so now we have the plant all done. We've got most of the images in place. What we have left here to do is that branch that sticks out on the left side. And of course, at that point you can also color it. I used the watercolors that were included in the kit. I'm not showing you that coloring process because boy does my watercoloring stink. I think I could probably take lessons from all of you. So I'm not going to show you that, but I did want to share the stamping process. Now here's another little trick. You see here the branch has this huge stem on it, but we only see that little bit of leaves there in the practice image, or my inspiration image, sorry. Oops, and there you see the mask came off, so I'm going to put those back in place. But anyway, we obviously don't want to have that great big long stem that was part of that branch. And so there's an easy way to get around that. Now, one thing you could do is a mask for part of the plate or the plate. But the only thing is if you see the inspiration photo, some of those leaves are actually look like they're resting inside of the plate. So I decided in order to achieve that, I'm going to just put ink on part of my image. So you see that long stem, I'm going to take my wet wipe and I'm going to get rid of all the ink that's on that long stem. So therefore all it's going to show are the two branches. So one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the fact that I've used my Misty platform in this technique or this video for you. And I do think there are two things that revolutionize the ability for the average person to do multi-layering stamping. One is Misty, or any kind of platform like this, because it allows you to see what you're doing so much better and allows you to stamp multiple times in the same place without having to worry about the ghosting, which occurs when your stamp moves a little bit here or there. But then the other thing is the clear polymer stamps have totally changed the game. I can't imagine how difficult this must have been when there were just the rubberized stamps. It must have been very, very tough. So nowadays with these advancements, even recreational crafters like me can have really good results with multi-layering stamping. Makes it so much easier. Now I did get a couple smudges here on my jar and on the plate, but by the time I colored it you couldn't tell anyway. I used such dark colors it really didn't matter. So skipping ahead here, you can see that I've already colored or painted my images. I used the watercolor samples that were in the Hero Arts kit with kind of limited success. It's okay. But I got it a lot darker than the inspirational photo. The one thing that is deliberately different is the jar, because here in the Carolinas we're known for our pottery, and the colorations that the potters use here are very dark and multi-tonal, and so that was kind of what I was trying to achieve, and I think that actually turned out decently well. So at this point, of course, I also stamped the thankful that came in the kit. And I also mounted the watercolor paper on this craft cardstock. So I got this brown border on each edge of my card panel. Now I'm going to put that on just a plain white card panel that folds at the top. I'm going to apply that with my wet glue. And so in that way my card presentation, or that panel, is a bit different from Janette's. Because I added the border and so on. But I thought that the brown was a nice touch to the overall image, especially since mine was so dark. Well, that concludes my tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it that you can use. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. I love a comment, and also subscribe if you haven't done so already. And it never hurts to hit that little bell next to the subscribe button, because then you'll know when I post something new. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.